The Manhattan Dream, a true connection. Hello, my dear listeners. Welcome back to another heartwarming story here on our channel. Today, I've brought you a narrative that is sure to touch the very soul of each one of you. Imagine, for a moment, a young, hard-working woman, pure of heart and simple in her dreams, crossing paths with an extremely successful businessman. What begins as casual encounters in silent corridors soon transforms into something neither of them expected. He, accustomed to the world of high finance and heavy responsibilities, discovers there is something far more valuable than all the money in the world. She, with her simplicity and dedication, awakens in him feelings he didn't even know existed. But what makes this story even more special is the presence of a wise woman who sees beyond appearances and understands that true love knows no barriers. You will be moved by every gesture of affection, every sincere word, and especially by the discovery that sometimes the best things in life arrive when we least expect them. Thank you so much for being here with me again, for leaving your kind comments that I always read with so much love, and for sharing our stories with people you know will be just as touched. If you're not yet part of our family, subscribe now so you don't miss any of the coming stories. And tell me in the comments, are you listening to our story while having an afternoon snack, or maybe relaxing after a long day? I love to know how you share these moments with me. So, prepare your hearts, because our story is starting now. Chapter 1. Early mornings and unlikely encounters. Ilara's alarm clock chimed at 5 in the morning, as it always did, cutting through the silence of the small apartment she shared with her mother in the vibrant neighborhood of Harlem, New York. She got up slowly, trying not to make noise so as not to wake Ms. Clara, who was still sleeping in the next room. The routine was always the same: a quick shower, black coffee with toast, and then catching 2 subway lines to reach Midtown Manhattan, where she worked as a cleaner at the most imposing corporate skyscraper in the region, the Sterling Tower. Ilara was 22, but she carried the responsibility of someone who had known life's struggles from an early age. Since her father left when she was 15, it had always been just her and her mother, fighting together to maintain the dignity and the home they had built with so much love and sacrifice. As she got ready in the tiny bathroom, looking at her reflection in the cracked mirror, Ilara thought about her plans for the future. She was in the final year of her nighttime business administration technical course and dreamed of getting a better job, perhaps in a company where she could use what she was learning. For now, however, the cleaning job paid the bills and allowed her and her mother to live with dignity. She always repeated to herself that honest work was never a cause for shame, and that every day of struggle made her stronger and more prepared for whatever the future might bring. Ilara had a sweet and genuine smile, the kind that comes from a pure heart, and someone who always believes better days will come. On the way to work, inside the crowded morning subway car, Ilara watched the city waking up through the steamed-up window. She liked seeing people rushing to their jobs, the stores opening, and the movement growing on the streets. She always imagined the stories behind every face she saw. Each person had their dreams, their struggles, their joys. When she arrived at the Sterling Tower, she greeted Mr. George, the doorman, who always had a kind word, and rode the elevator up to the 12th floor, home to the offices of Blackwood & Associates, a highly respected corporate consulting firm. Ilara felt proud to work there, even if it was in general services. She always took care of everything with great attention, as if it were her own home. Julian Blackwood woke up in his penthouse apartment at 6:30 in the morning, as he had for over 10 years. At 32, he was the principal partner of the firm he inherited from his father, which he had transformed into one of the most prosperous in the region. His routine was meticulous: exercise in his private gym, a shower, a balanced breakfast, and then straight to the office where he spent most of his days. Julian was a handsome man, tall, with expressive brown eyes, but there was a discreet melancholy in his gaze that few people could perceive. He had everything money could buy, yet he felt something important was missing in his life, something he couldn't quite define, but that left him with a constant sense of emptiness. Julian's love life had always been complicated. The women he met in his social circle seemed more interested in what he could offer than in who he truly was. He had a few serious relationships, but he always felt he was playing a role, being the successful man everyone expected him to be, never managing to be simply himself. For this reason, for the past 2 years, Julian had dedicated himself completely to work, avoiding romantic commitments and focusing on expanding the firm. But deep down, he dreamed of finding someone who would love him genuinely, someone with whom he could share not only his successes, but also his insecurities and fears. Someone who would see beyond his bank account and recognize the simple man behind all that structure of success. That Tuesday morning, Julian decided to arrive at the office early to review some important contracts before his 9 o'clock meeting. When he stepped out of the elevator on the 12th floor, he was surprised to see the lights already on and hear a gentle sound coming from the reception area. He walked slowly toward the sound and found a young woman kneeling beside the entrance's potted plants, talking softly to them as she watered them carefully. "You look even more beautiful today," Ilara was saying to the plants, unaware she was being watched. "I bet you like this morning light, right? I like it too. It's the most beautiful time of the day." Julian stood there, observing the simple scene, which touched something deep in his heart. Ilara finally noticed someone's presence and turned, meeting Julian's eyes. For a moment, they stood in silence, as if time had stopped. She quickly got up, slightly embarrassed that she had been caught talking to the plants. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood. I apologize. I didn't know you were already here. I always come early to get everything ready before everyone arrives," Ilara said, lowering her eyes slightly, but maintaining a respectful posture. Julian smiled, a genuine smile that hadn't appeared on his face in a long time. "Good morning, and please call me Julian. You are Ilara, aren't you? Mr. George has told me about you. He said you take care of everything here with great care." The simplicity and sincerity in his voice made Ilara feel more at ease. "It's true. I really enjoy working here. The plants are like my friends, you know. I talk to them every day, and I think they look prettier that way," Ilara replied, with a shy but genuine smile. Julian was touched by such a pure and spontaneous answer. "Would you like some coffee? I always make a strong pot when I get in early," Julian offered, wanting to prolong the conversation that was proving to be so pleasant. Ilara hesitated for a moment. She wasn't sure if it was appropriate to accept, but something in his voice was so sincere that she couldn't refuse. "If it's not too much trouble, I will." "Thank you." While Julian prepared the coffee in the small kitchen area, the two talked about simple things: the morning traffic, the weather, the office plants. It was a light conversation, but a special connection was happening there, something neither of them could explain. Chapter 2. The Mother's Intuition. When Julian returned home that evening, his mother, Mrs. Vivian, was in the living room reading a book, as she always did after dinner. Mrs. Vivian was an elegant woman of 58, widowed for 5 years, who dedicated her days to social activities and caring for her only son. She knew Julian better than anyone, and could always tell when something different was happening in his life. "How was your day, my son?" Mrs. Vivian asked, closing her book and looking at Julian with that maternal attention only mothers possess. "It was good, Mom. Nothing much different than usual," Julian replied. But Mrs. Vivian noticed something different in his tone of voice, a lightness she hadn't seen in a long time. "Are you sure? You seem, I don't know, more relaxed today." Julian sat down next to his mother on the sofa and smiled. Today, I had a very pleasant conversation with the woman who handles the cleaning at the office, a very kind, very special young woman. Mrs. Vivian raised her eyebrows with interest. She knew her son well enough to know he wouldn't comment on someone for no reason. Special how? Mrs. Vivian asked, trying to mask the curiosity in her voice. She has a purity in her nature, Mom. A genuine simplicity that is very rare to find. Today, I saw her talking to the office plants, taking care of them as if they were special beings. And when we talked, she was so natural, so true. It's been a long time since I've met someone like that. Mrs. Vivian smiled internally, recognizing in her son the signs of someone who had found something remarkable. "And what is the name of this special young woman?" Mrs. Vivian asked gently. "Ilara," Julian replied. And Mrs. Vivian noticed how the name left her son's mouth with a unique sweetness. Meanwhile, in the small Harlem apartment, Ilara was telling Ms. Clara about her workday as the two ate the simple soup she had prepared. "Today was different, Mom. The owner of the firm arrived early, and we talked a little. He is very polite, very different from what I imagined," Ilara said, stirring the soup in her bowl. Ms. Clara, a 55-year-old woman who had aged prematurely due to life's hardships, looked at her daughter attentively. "Different how, my dear?" "He was kind, Mom. He offered me coffee, talked to me as if I were an important person. Most people don't even look at those who clean the floor they walk on, but he was different." Ms. Clara smiled, seeing the special sparkle in her daughter's eyes. "That is very good, Ilara. People like that still exist, thank goodness. You always deserve to be treated with respect, no matter what your job is." Ilara nodded, but she didn't tell her mother about the strange feeling she got when she looked into Julian's eyes, or how her heart beat faster when he smiled at her. It was something she couldn't quite understand herself, a mixture of nervousness and joy she had never felt before. After dinner, while studying for her technical course exams, Ilara found herself thinking about those few minutes of conversation. Julian's calm voice, the respectful way he treated her. It was only the first day, but something told her that her routine was about to change in a way she could never have imagined. In the silence of the small room, with books scattered on the bed, Ilara fell asleep dreaming of morning conversations and genuine smiles that made her heart feel at home. Chapter 3. An Unspoken Connection. In the following days, Julian began to arrive at the office earlier and earlier, always using the excuse that he had too much work to catch up on. But the truth was, he was anxious to see Ilara and have those morning conversations that had become the best part of his day. On Wednesday, when he arrived at 7 in the morning, she was already there, organizing the reception and softly humming a song he didn't recognize. "Good morning, Ilara," Julian said, and she turned with that smile that was beginning to become familiar and dear to him. "Good morning, Julian. You are coming in quite early lately. You must have a lot of important work to do," she replied, and there was a genuine concern in her voice that touched his heart. It was comforting to have someone who cared, even in a simple and disinterested way. During the coffee break, which had become a routine between them, Julian discovered more about Ilara's life. He learned she studied business administration at night, took care of her mother alone, and dreamed of getting a better job to provide more comfort for Ms. Clara. "You're studying business administration? That's wonderful, Ilara. It's an area that always has opportunities," Julian said, genuinely impressed by her determination. "Yes, I'm in my final year. It's tough studying after working all day, but I always dreamed of working in a corporate office, maybe helping to organize things, you know? I like seeing everything working properly," Ilara replied, her eyes shining when she spoke of her dreams. Julian was touched by the simplicity and honesty of her goals. So different from the complex and sometimes empty ambitions of the people in his world. On Thursday, Julian arrived carrying a box of pastries from the best bakery in the city. "I brought a special breakfast today," Will you share it with me? He offered. Ilara was slightly embarrassed. Julian, you didn't have to. I already had coffee at home, she said. But he insisted with a warm smile. Please, it will be much tastier with company. And these pastries are a weakness of mine since I was a kid. As they savored the delicious treats, Julian told her about his childhood, about how his father always brought home special pastries on Sundays, and Ilara shared memories of her own simple but happy childhood. It was incredible how two people from such different worlds could find so much common ground when talking about true feelings and family memories. During this conversation, Ilara casually mentioned that she was worried because her mother needed expensive medication for high blood pressure, and she was trying to save up to buy it. Julian felt his heart sink upon hearing this. Without a second thought, he offered financial help. Ilara, I can help with that medication. It's really no problem for me, he said sincerely. But to his surprise, she politely but firmly refused. Thank you, Julian. That is very kind of you. But my mother and I have always managed to get by on our own. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but we manage. The dignity in her voice impressed Julian deeply. He had never met anyone who refused his financial help, especially someone who truly needed it. In that moment, he realized Ilara was a genuinely special person. Mrs. Vivian noticed the changes in her son's behavior during dinner on Thursday. Julian was more cheerful, more communicative, and even commented on small details of the day that he normally wouldn't share. My son, you are different this week. Happier, I'd say, Mrs. Vivian observed, delicately cutting her dessert fruit. Mom, you notice everything, Julian replied with a smile. I've been having very interesting conversations at the office. Remember Ilara that I mentioned? She really is a special person. Today I found out she is studying administration, and she has very clear dreams and goals. It's admirable to see someone so young with so much determination. Mrs. Vivian paid attention to every word, noticing how her son's eyes shone when he spoke about this young woman. And what else did you find out about her? Mrs. Vivian asked, trying to sound casual. Julian paused for a moment, as if organizing his thoughts. She has a purity of heart that is rare, Mom. Today, I offered financial help for a problem she has, and she refused with a dignity that left me speechless. Most people I know would accept without a second thought, but she didn't. She is proud of her work. She respects her own struggle. Mrs. Vivian felt her heart warm upon hearing these words. As a mother, she always wished her son would find someone who valued him for who he truly was, not for what he possessed. She sounds like a very special young woman indeed. Perhaps you should get to know her better, Mrs. Vivian suggested gently. On Friday, Julian showed up at the office carrying a vase of beautiful flowers. I thought it would be nice to have fresh flowers at the reception. What do you think? He asked Ilara, who was delighted by the gesture. They're lovely, Julian. They will make the environment much more cheerful. Can I take care of them? She asked, with genuine enthusiasm. Actually, I was hoping you would say that. I'm sure they will be much more beautiful under your care, he replied, and the two smiled. Ilara didn't realize it, but those flowers were bought specifically with her in mind, for the pleasure she would take in caring for them, and for the excuse they would provide for more conversations about gardening and life. Throughout that week, Julian's coworkers began to notice he was arriving earlier and looking more relaxed. Some commented that they hadn't seen him so calm and smiling in years. What they didn't know was that those 30-minute morning conversations with Ilara were completely changing Julian's perspective on what truly mattered in life. He would catch himself thinking about her during meetings, remembering something funny she had said, or planning an interesting topic for the next day's conversation. It was a new and frightening feeling at the same time, because Julian was beginning to realize it wasn't just a friendly interest or curiosity. He was genuinely becoming interested in Ilara, in a way he hadn't been interested in anyone for a very long time. Ilara, in turn, was also going through transformations she couldn't completely understand. The conversations with Julian had become the most anticipated moment of her day. She would find herself choosing her work clothes more carefully, arriving a few minutes earlier to ensure everything was perfect when he arrived. During her night classes, she sometimes got distracted, remembering something he had said, or wondering what the next day's conversation would be about. Ms. Clara noticed her daughter was more cheerful, humming in the mornings, and coming home with a special sparkle in her eyes she hadn't seen in a long time. At the end of the week, when Julian said goodbye to Ilara on Friday, wishing her a good weekend, both felt a strange sense that 2 days without seeing each other seemed too long. It was a clear sign that something special was growing between them, something that went far beyond a casual rapport between a boss and an employee. It was the beginning of a true connection between two hearts that, unknowingly, were preparing to find in the other exactly what they had always sought, but never knew how to define. The weekend would be long for both of them, but Monday would bring new opportunities to discover how far this closeness could lead. Chapter 4. A mother's blessing. Monday arrived with a light rain that gave the city a melancholic air, but Julian woke up with an animation he hadn't felt in a long time. Throughout the weekend, he caught himself thinking about Ilara, imagining how her weekend had been, if she had managed to rest, if she had studied for her exams. When he arrived at the office that morning, he found Ilara looking a little pale with red eyes, as if she had been crying. "Good morning, Ilara. Are you all right?" Julian asked with genuine concern in his voice. She tried to smile, but couldn't completely hide that something was wrong. "Good morning, Julian. I'm fine. Just a little tired," she replied, but her voice was weaker than normal. Julian immediately realized she wasn't telling the truth, and a protective feeling he had never felt before took over his chest. During their coffee break, Julian noticed Ilara barely touched her cup and gently refused the toast he offered. "Ilara, are you sure you're okay? You look like you have a fever," he insisted. And when he got closer to observe her better, he confirmed his suspicion. Her forehead was hot, and her eyes were glazed, like someone who was ill. "You're sick, and you shouldn't have come to work today. This is not right," Julian said with a kind firmness. Ilara tried to protest, explaining she couldn't miss work, that she needed the day's pay, but he wouldn't accept it. "You are going home right now, and I don't want to hear any protests. Your salary will not be deducted, I guarantee it." The concern in his voice was so sincere that Ilara felt warmth in her heart, even with the fever she was feeling. Julian insisted on taking Ilara home personally, driving his imported car through the simple streets of Harlem. During the ride, she was embarrassed he was seeing where she lived, but Julian showed no judgment or discomfort. On the contrary, he observed everything with respectful interest, as if he were getting to know an important part of the life of someone who had become special to him. When they arrived at the small building where Ilara lived, she thanked him shyly and tried to get out of the car quickly, but Julian gently held her arm. "Wait, Ilara. Let me go up with you to meet your mother and explain that you're sick. She might worry if you arrive home early without warning." Ms. Clara was surprised when she opened the door and found her daughter accompanied by an elegant, well-dressed man. Ilara made the introductions with a weak voice, and Julian greeted Ms. Clara with the respect and courtesy he always showed to older people. "Ms. Clara, your daughter wasn't feeling well at work. I wanted to bring her home personally to make sure she arrived safely," Julian explained, and Ms. Clara was touched by the genuine concern in his voice. "Thank you very much, sir. It's rare to find bosses who worry about employees like this," Ms. Clara replied, looking at Julian with gratitude. He helped Ilara settle on the small living room sofa and asked if they needed anything, if they had medicine at home, if Ms. Clara needed help taking care of her daughter. Before leaving, Julian mentally noted the address and promised he would return later to see how Alara was feeling. Ms. Clara accompanied him to the door, and when Alara couldn't hear, she whispered, "Thank you truly, Mr. Julian. It's been a long time since I've seen anyone worry about my daughter like this. She is a very good girl. She works too much and never complains about anything." Julian felt his heart constrict with these words. "Ms. Clara, your daughter is a very special person. It's a privilege to know her." When he left the apartment, Julian drove to the nearest pharmacy and bought fever medicine, vitamins, and also fruit, and a nutritious broth from a restaurant he knew. He couldn't stop thinking about Alara alone in that simple apartment, feeling ill. When he returned to the office, Julian tried to focus on work, but his mind was completely focused on Alara. Around noon, he couldn't stand it anymore, and decided to go back to her apartment to take the medicine and food he had bought. When he rang the doorbell, Ms. Clara answered it with a look of relief on her face. "It's good you came back. Alara has a high fever and doesn't want to eat anything." Julian entered carrying his purchases and found Alara lying on the sofa, paler than in the morning. "Julian, you didn't have to come back. You've already done too much for me," she murmured with a weak voice. "Of course I did. I brought medicine and food. You need to take good care of yourself to get better soon." Ms. Clara was emotional when she saw everything Julian had brought. Expensive medicines, fresh fruit, a deliciously smelling broth. "My God, Mr. Julian, all this must have cost a fortune. How are we going to pay?" she asked, worried. Julian shook his head with a gentle smile. "Ms. Clara, please don't worry about it. It's just a gesture of affection for someone who works with me and whom I greatly admire." Alara, even with a fever, was touched by the delicacy of his response. It was impressive how he managed to help without making anyone feel humiliated or diminished. At that moment, even sick, she felt something different growing in her chest, a gratitude that went far beyond a simple thank you. Julian stayed in the apartment for almost an hour, talking to Ms. Clara while Alara rested. He discovered she was a wise and strong woman who had raised her daughter alone after being abandoned by her husband, always with great love and dignity. "Alara has always been a special girl, Mr. Julian. Since she was little, she takes care of everyone. She never thinks only of herself. Sometimes I worry because she gives too much to others," Ms. Clara shared, and Julian realized where Alara had inherited her generosity and purity of heart. "You raised a wonderful daughter, Miss Clara. It's an honor to have Alara in the workplace." His words made Ms. Clara smile with pride, but also with a maternal intuition that began to perceive that this man's feelings for her daughter went beyond professional interest. When Julian finally left, promising to return the next day to see how Alara was doing, Ms. Clara sat next to her daughter on the sofa. "My daughter, this man is in love with you," she said delicately. Alara opened her eyes, still sleepy from the fever, and shook her head. "Mom, don't say that. He's just a good person who cares about his employees." But Ms. Clara, with the experience of someone who has lived a lot, insisted. "Alara, I am your mother, and I have known you since you were born. And I also know how to recognize when a man is truly interested in a woman. The way he looks at you, the concern in his voice, the care with which he speaks of you. This is not just professional kindness, my dear." That night, while Alara slept with the help of the medicine Julian had brought, Ms. Clara stayed awake, thinking about the unexpected visit. There was something very special about that man, a sincerity and delicacy that were rare to find. She could see he came from a completely different world than theirs, but she also perceived that this did not make him arrogant or insensitive. On the contrary, Julian showed genuine respect for them, a true admiration for Alara that transcended any social difference. Ms. Clara caught herself saying a silent prayer, asking that if something special was truly blooming between her daughter and that man, that God would bless that feeling and protect her girl's pure heart. Meanwhile, in his luxurious penthouse, Julian also spent the night awake, thinking about Alara. The image of her pale and feverish on the small sofa in that simple apartment wouldn't leave his mind. He had never felt so protective of someone, so willing to care for and look after a person's well-being. It was a new and, at the same time, frightening sensation, because Julian was starting to realize that his feelings for Alara were much deeper than a simple attraction or casual interest. It was as if she had awakened in him a capacity to love he didn't even know he possessed, a desire to protect and make someone happy that he had never experienced before with such intensity. Chapter 5. The Confession. Alara returned to work on Thursday, still a little pale but determined not to miss any more days. When Julian saw her arrive at the office that morning, he felt an immense relief, mixed with a joy that surprised him with its intensity. "How are you feeling? Are you sure you're ready to work?" he asked, observing her face carefully for signs that she wasn't fully recovered yet. "I'm much better, thank you. The medicine you brought was very effective, and the broth was delicious," Alara replied with a genuine smile that made Julian's heart beat faster. There was something different in the way she looked at him now, a new sweetness that hadn't existed before, as if the care he had taken of her during her illness had created a special intimacy between them. During their coffee break, which had become a sacred ritual for the two, Alara was more talkative than usual. She told him how impressed her mother had been with his kindness, how she felt cared for in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time, and how good it felt to know she had someone worrying about her besides her own mother. "Julian, I want to thank you again for everything you did, not just for the medicine and the food, but for caring. It meant a lot to me and my mother," she said, and there was a genuine emotion in her voice that deeply touched his heart. Julian felt it was the right time to start opening up about what he was feeling, even if he didn't yet have the courage for a complete confession. "Alara, I need you to know that it wasn't just kindness or professional obligation. I cared because you have become a very special person to me," Julian said, carefully choosing his words. "These morning meetings have become the best part of my day. Your conversations, your smiles, the way you see the world, all of it has brought me a joy I haven't felt in a long time." Alara felt her face flush and her heart accelerate. It was the first time a man had spoken to her that way, with such sincerity and delicacy. She lowered her eyes, a little embarrassed, but also happy to hear those words. "Me too. I'm also very happy when we talk. You make me feel important, valued. It's a very good feeling." In the following days, the closeness between them grew naturally. Julian began to share more details of his personal life, talking about the loneliness he felt, even though he had everything money could buy, and about how difficult it was to find genuine people in his business world. Alara, in turn, opened up about her dreams for the future, about her fear of not being able to give her mother a better life, and about how she sometimes felt small in the face of a world so large and complicated. It was incredible how two people from such different universes could understand each other so deeply when the topic was universal human feelings and fears. Mrs. Vivian noticed her son was undergoing a significant transformation. During dinner on Friday, Julian was more communicative than ever, talking about work with an enthusiasm he hadn't shown in years. "My son, you are radiating happiness lately. This friendship with Alara is really doing you good," Mrs. Vivian observed with a maternal smile. Julian stopped eating and looked at his mother with a serious expression. "Mom, I need to talk to you about this. Actually, I'm sure I'm falling in love with her." Mrs. Vivian felt her heart warm, but she kept her expression calm so as not to show how happy she was with this revelation. "And how do you feel about that?" I'm scared, Mom. Scared of dreaming too much, of misinterpreting the signs she gives me. She is a simple, pure person, the type who doesn't play games or give hints. If she knew what I was feeling, Julian confessed, running his hands through his hair in a nervous gesture. Mrs. Vivian approached her son and held his hands lovingly. Julian, my son, you are a good, honest man, whom any woman would be happy to get to know better. It's not the bank account that defines who you are. It's your values, your character, your capacity to love. If she really is the special person you describe, she will know how to see that in you. During the weekend, Julian made a decision. He could no longer pretend his feelings for Alara were just friendship or professional admiration. He was completely in love, thought about her all the time, and dreamed of the possibility of having a life by her side. On Monday, he arrived at the office with a determination he had never felt before. When he found Alara caring for the reception plants, as she always did, he felt it was time to be completely honest with her and with himself. "Alara, can you talk to me for a few minutes? It's something important," he said. And she realized by the seriousness in his voice that it wasn't a casual conversation like the others. They sat down in the small meeting room, and Julian took a deep breath before starting to speak. "Alara, I know what I'm about to say might sound strange, and I understand if you feel uncomfortable or want to keep your distance after this, but I can no longer hide what I'm feeling." Alara felt her heart pound, intuiting she was about to hear something that would completely change the dynamic between them. "Since the first day we spoke, since I saw you caring for those plants with such affection, I knew you were different from everyone I have ever met. It's not just your beauty, which is immense, but your purity, your sincerity, the way you see the world with so much love and hope." Julian paused, observing Alara's reaction. Her eyes were wide, but she showed no discomfort, only surprise. "I have fallen in love with you, Alara. Completely, deeply in love. I wake up thinking about you. I spend the whole day waiting for our morning meetings. I sleep dreaming about your conversations and your smiles. I know we come from very different worlds. I know this might sound crazy, but I have never felt anything like this for anyone before." Alara felt tears beginning to form in her eyes, not from sadness, but from an emotion so intense she couldn't completely process it. She had never imagined she could awaken such strong feelings in anyone, especially in a man like Julian. "I don't want you to feel pressured to answer anything now. I just needed you to know that my feelings are true and deep. You have transformed my life in a way I didn't even know was possible. You made me realize I was living on autopilot, without truly feeling joy or a genuine connection with anyone," Julian continued, his voice full of emotion. "If you want, I would love to have the chance to get to know you better outside of the work environment, to show you that my feelings go far beyond any social difference that may exist between us." Alara finally found her voice, which came out shaky but firm. "Julian, I also feel something special for you. I also look forward to our meetings. I also think about you." During the day, I just thought it was impossible that you could never be interested in someone like me. Julian moved closer to her and gently held her hands. "Alara, you are the most special person I have ever met. Your background, your job, none of that matters to me. What matters is your heart, your soul, the wonderful person you are." At that moment, with their hands intertwined and their eyes meeting in a deep and true connection, the two knew they were starting something that would change their lives forever. It was the beginning of a love that had been born in the simplicity of morning meetings and had grown in the purity of true feelings. A love that would prove social differences are insignificant when two souls recognize and choose each other. And so, my dear listeners, we come to the end of another story that teaches us about the transformative power of true love. The journey of Alara and Julian shows us that when two people meet genuinely, When they can see beyond appearances and social differences, love can blossom in the purest and most beautiful way possible. Elara, with her simplicity and pure heart, teaches us that true wealth lies in the capacity to love without self-interest, to care for others with genuine affection, and to maintain dignity even in the face of difficulties. She never lost her essence, even when her life changed completely. Julian, in turn, discovered that happiness is not in material achievements, but in the possibility of loving and being loved by someone who sees the best in us. Mrs. Vivian and Ms. Clara show us how maternal love can unite people from different worlds, creating bonds that go beyond blood. And the little Miguel represents the continuation of this love story, the fruit of a union based on respect, mutual admiration, and the certainty that true love always finds a way to overcome all barriers. May this story inspire you to believe in true love, to value the sincere people who cross your path, and to never give up dreaming of genuine and lasting happiness. Always remember, the love that is worthwhile is the one that accepts us as we are and inspires us to be the best version of ourselves. And you, dear listener, have reached the end of another one of our moving stories. If this narrative touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet part of our family, and share this story with someone special. Tell me in the comments, what was the part of Elara and Julian's story that moved you the most? Your comments are very important to me and help me choose the next stories I will tell you. Thank you so much for spending these hours with me, listening to another story of love and hope. May God bless you and your families with much love, health, and happiness. Until the next story, my dear listeners. Chapter 6: The Blending of Worlds. The honeymoon in the serene Hudson Valley, far from the bustle of the city, was exactly what Elara and Julian needed to officially begin their married life. Julian had chosen a romantic yet cozy retreat, wanting something that made Elara feel comfortable and special at the same time. They spent their days walking through sun-dappled trails, visiting small artisan shops, dining by candlelight, and talking for hours about the dreams they held for the future. Julian, thank you for choosing such a perfect place for our honeymoon. It's exactly what I always dreamed of, Elara said as they walked hand in hand. Elara, now all my dreams include you. I want every special moment of our lives to be perfect for both of us. In the intimate nights at the cozy lodge, they discovered a completely new dimension of the love they shared. For Elara, who had saved her purity until she found the man of her life, every moment of intimacy was a magical and thrilling discovery. Julian, in turn, had never experienced such a deep and genuine connection with another person, a surrender that went far beyond the physical and touched both their souls. I love you so much, my wife, Julian whispered as he held her in his arms, and Elara felt she had found not just a husband, but her soulmate, the person with whom she was destined to share her entire life. The career path. When they returned to Julian's penthouse, adapting to married life was surprisingly natural. Julian had prepared a special surprise for Elara, decorating part of the mansion to reflect her simple and cozy taste, creating spaces where she felt completely at ease. Their bedroom featured a balcony overlooking a garden he had specially planted, remembering her love for plants and flowers. Julian, you thought of every detail to make me happy. How can I be so lucky? Elara asked, moved by the loving adaptations he had made. Elara, your happiness is my happiness. This house only truly became a home when you became a part of it. Mrs. Vivian was radiant to have Elara officially living in the house. The two women developed a harmonious routine of companionship, with Mrs. Vivian treating her daughter-in-law as the daughter she had always wished for. They cooked together, tended the gardens, and talked about plans for the family's future. "My dear, it's been a long time since this house felt the joy of a young family. You've brought new life to these corridors," Mrs. Vivian often said. Ms. Clara also became a constant presence in the new house, always welcomed warmly by Mrs. Vivian, who insisted she feel like part of the extended family they had created. A few weeks after the wedding, Julian surprised Alara with a proposition. Knowing she was graduating soon and was eager to use her business administration degree, he offered her a position as a junior project coordinator within Blackwood and Associates. It would be a completely new division, focused on modernizing our internal systems, Julian explained. The role would report to one of the senior partners, not me, to ensure professionalism. You wouldn't be cleaning the office, Alara. You'd be running it from the inside. Exactly as you dreamed. Alara's eyes shone. The thought of working in the field she had struggled to study for, right inside the imposing Sterling Tower, was intoxicating. "Are you sure this is appropriate, Julian? I don't want anyone thinking I got the job because I'm your wife. The only thing anyone will think is that you got the job because you're brilliant and hardworking. And I know you will prove it," he assured her. Alara accepted the offer. She quickly excelled, using her practical experience from working on the ground and her academic knowledge to implement highly effective efficiency systems. She had a unique perspective that the seasoned consultants lacked. She understood how the company functioned at its most basic, operational level. Her co-workers, initially skeptical, soon learned to respect her sharp intellect and humble approach. The first test. A rumor in Midtown, however. Not every transition was seamless. A few months into her new role, a subtle whisper campaign began circulating through the executive floors. Some jealous managers, feeling threatened by the young, rapidly rising coordinator, who also happened to be the boss's wife, started spreading rumors that Julian had given Alara a lucrative contract as a test of his loyalty to her, suggesting he was using company funds to indulge a social folly. The rumor was petty but insidious, focusing on the disparity of their backgrounds. It reached Julian during a highly stressful time of preparing for a major international acquisition. Julian, consumed by work, initially missed the subtle shift in Alara's demeanor. She was quieter at home, sometimes distant, and her trademark genuine smile had become strained. One evening, after Julian praised her successful implementation of a new data management system, Alara finally broke. "Did you hear the whispers, Julian?" she asked, her voice cracking slightly. They say the only reason I'm here is because of you. That I'm your little charity project, not a partner." Julian's face hardened. He immediately understood the source and the viciousness of the rumors. He sat beside her and took her hand. "Alara, look at me. Everything you have earned here, you earned with hard work. The respect you command, you earned it with results. Do you truly believe, for 1 second, that I doubt your capability?" "No, I don't doubt you," she confessed, tears welling up. "I doubt them. And sometimes, I doubt if I can keep fighting their judgment every day." Julian's response was not just comforting. It was an action plan. He knew simply telling her not to worry wasn't enough. He needed to publicly affirm her worth. The next morning, Julian called an impromptu all-hands meeting for the entire floor, something he rarely did. Alara was sitting among her project team, looking nervous. Julian began by addressing the acquisition, then paused and turned to Alara. "We are about to take on the largest acquisition in this firm's history," he stated, his voice firm and commanding. "That requires a team functioning at its absolute peak. And this brings me to a crucial point. The reason our internal operations are ready for this kind of stress test is thanks to the incredible work done by the new systems division, spearheaded by Alara Blackwood." He walked over to her desk. "Alara has not only implemented the most efficient data management system we've ever had, but she did it on budget and ahead of schedule." She joined this firm based on her intellect, her education, and her relentless drive. He looked directly at his senior staff, his eyes unwavering. And let me be perfectly clear. Any attempt to undermine her professional standing, any distraction caused by baseless, petty rumors, will be viewed as an attack on the firm's efficiency and will be handled without leniency. Her success is our success, and I, for one, am immensely proud to work alongside her. The room was silent. Julian's decisive action cut through the poisonous atmosphere immediately. He didn't just defend her as a husband. He championed her as an indispensable professional partner. Ilara met his gaze, her eyes now shining with gratitude and a renewed fighting spirit. In that moment, she realized that their love wasn't just about sharing a home. It was about unconditional, public support, a bedrock foundation that truly blended their two worlds, proving that their union was built on respect, capability, and unwavering partnership. The rumor faded away. Ilara, revitalized, threw herself back into her work, knowing that her biggest supporter was the man who loved her completely. Chapter 7. The Greatest Gift. 2 months later, the whispers were completely forgotten, replaced by the excitement of a highly successful acquisition. Julian was exhausted, but exhilarated. Returning home late one evening, he found Ilara waiting for him, bathed in the soft light of the living room, a gentle smile on her face. "I have a gift for the successful CEO," she said, handing him a small, beautifully wrapped box. Julian, expecting a new tie or a watch, opened it to find a tiny metallic baby pacifier tucked beside a small, positive pregnancy test. He froze. His mind, usually sharp and quick, struggled to process the unexpected joy. Then, his eyes filled with tears of emotion, and he pulled Ilara into his arms, with a force that conveyed all the boundless happiness he was feeling. "Ilara, are you pregnant? We're going to have a baby?" "Yes, my love. We are going to be parents," she replied, her own eyes shining with tears of happiness. Julian's joy was indescribable. He kissed Ilara repeatedly, then gently knelt and affectionately kissed her still flat abdomen. "Hello, baby, this is Daddy. I already love you more than I can explain," Julian whispered, and Ilara was profoundly moved to see the tenderness with which her husband already addressed the child growing inside her. At that moment, they knew their family was complete even before the baby was born, because the love they felt for each other had multiplied and now included this new life they had created together. End of the current expansion. Do you want to continue the story, perhaps focusing on the grandmother's reactions and the final birth of their child, Miguel? Chapter 8. The Joy of the Grandmothers. The news of the pregnancy brought an overwhelming wave of joy, especially to the two women who loved Ilara and Julian most, Mrs. Vivian and Ms. Clara. Mrs. Vivian, Julian's mother, nearly fainted with emotion when she found out she was going to be a grandmother. She hugged Ilara and Julian at the same time, weeping tears of pure happiness. "My goodness, what a wonderful blessing. I'm going to be a grandmother. You've given me the most precious gift I could ever receive," Mrs. Vivian exclaimed, immediately imagining all the pampering she would dedicate to the grandchild who was on the way. Ms. Clara, Ilara's mother, was equally radiant with the news, hugging her daughter with maternal pride. "My dear, you are going to be a wonderful mother. And what a joy to know that my little grandchild will grow up surrounded by so much love." The two grandmothers immediately began making plans, discussing nursery decor, baby clothes, and all the necessary preparations to welcome the new member of the Blackwood family. Mrs. Vivian insisted on transforming a luxurious but underused wing of the penthouse into a beautifully decorated nursery, while Ms. Clara dedicated herself to knitting and sewing soft blankets and tiny outfits, pouring all her love and simple devotion into each stitch. A magical 9 months. The 9 months of pregnancy were a period of pure magic for Julian and Alara. Julian became even more protective and caring towards his wife, accompanying her to every doctor's appointment, reading books on fatherhood, and talking daily to the baby growing in Alara's womb. "How are you feeling today, my little prince or princess?" Julian would ask every morning, placing his hand on his wife's belly and feeling the baby's movements. Alara flourished during the pregnancy, radiating a maternal happiness that made her even more beautiful. Mrs. Vivian and Ms. Clara took turns caring for her, ensuring she had everything she needed for a calm and healthy gestation. Ms. Clara even moved into a special room that Julian had prepared in the mansion, ensuring she could help with Alara and be close to her daughter and soon-to-be-born grandchild. This blending of the two mothers under one roof brought an unexpected harmony, a shared joy that transcended all social differences. Upon the arrival of Miguel, when the time for delivery finally arrived, Julian was more nervous than Alara herself. He held her hand throughout the labor, whispering words of encouragement and love. "You are the strongest and bravest woman I know, my love. Soon we will meet our baby," he said, trying to conceal his own nervousness to provide reassurance to his wife. When they finally heard the baby's first cry, they both cried with him, moved by the miracle of life they had created together. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, and Julian felt his heart swell with joy. Little Miguel, a name chosen in honor of Julian's paternal grandfather, was born perfect and healthy. When they placed him in Alara's arms for the first time, she felt a love so intense and protective that she didn't know it existed. "Hello, my little angel. Mommy loves you so much," she whispered, gently kissing her son's head. Holding Miguel in his arms, Julian was moved to see how the baby resembled Alara in his eyes, and Julian in the shape of his face. "Welcome to the world, my son. Mommy and Daddy will take care of you forever," Julian promised, sealing the small forehead with a kiss. Mrs. Vivian and Ms. Clara arrived at the hospital a few hours after the birth, loaded with gifts and emotion. When Mrs. Vivian held her grandson for the first time, she cried tears of pure delight. Ms. Clara was equally moved, seeing in him the continuation of the family she and Alara had built, with so much love and struggle. The two grandmothers were already vying over who would spoil Miguel more, planning shifts of pampering and attention for the new little prince of the house. The family is complete. The first few months with Miguel were filled with constant adaptation and discovery. Julian proved to be an extremely dedicated and affectionate father, waking up during the night to help Alara with feedings, changing diapers with the utmost ease, and spending hours talking to his son as if he understood every word. "Miguel, today Daddy will teach you about the plants that Mommy loves so much," Julian would say, walking with the baby through the house gardens. Alara watched these scenes with a heart overflowing with love, seeing how Julian had transformed into a father, even more caring than she had imagined possible. The family they had formed was exactly everything Julian and Alara had dreamed of, and much more. A year after Miguel's birth, watching their son take his first steps in the house gardens, surrounded by the love of the two grandmothers who cheered him on enthusiastically, Julian and Alara reflected on the incredible journey they had traveled together. "Can you believe all this happiness we are living, Julian?" Alara asked, leaning on her husband's shoulder. "I believe it, my love. And I believe this is just the beginning of all the happiness we still have to live together," he replied, kissing his wife's forehead, and knowing they had built something eternal and unbreakable. A family based on true love, mutual respect, and the certainty that together they could overcome any challenge life brought their way. Chapter 9. The Balance of Power and Heart. After Miguel was born, life in the Blackwood penthouse became bustling, filled with children's laughter and the gentle scent of baby powder. Julian proved to be the quintessential devoted father, meticulously rearranging his work schedule to dedicate early mornings and evenings entirely to his family. He even installed a large monitor in his home office, occasionally tuning into the nursery camera to sneak a peek at Alara and Miguel playing in the garden. "You focus on your work. I'll watch the little guy," Julian would say after changing his son's diaper. "No matter how big the company is, this little man is the most important deal of my life." Alara's solid career ascent, Alara, after a short maternity leave, decided to return to her job at Blackwood & Associates. Now, she wasn't just the CEO's wife. She was the respected head of a critical department, Director of Systems and Performance. Her promotion was fully earned. The data management systems and process improvements she had implemented had saved the company millions of dollars and significantly boosted operational efficiency. She earned the absolute respect of her colleagues, whose initial skepticism had given way to dependence on her sharp insight and practical knowledge. During a tense shareholder meeting, when a seasoned partner tried to challenge one of her plans, Alara stood up and defended her position with clear metrics and cool confidence. "Sir," Alara stated, looking the partner directly in the eye, "we didn't just guess that this system would work. We proved it through last quarter's performance. And furthermore, as the director in charge, I will ensure it continues to exceed all expectations." Julian offered a discreet smile from the back of the room. His wife no longer needed his protection. She had become a true Manhattan powerhouse, a woman of authority based not on her husband's name, but on her own competence and intellect. The romantic covenant, despite their demanding careers and mounting family responsibilities, Julian and Alara always prioritized keeping the spark alive in their marriage. They committed to Friday night dates. Every Friday evening, Mrs. Vivian and Ms. Clara would tag team to watch Miguel. Julian and Alara would leave the luxury of their penthouse and return to the romantic simplicity of their beginning. Sometimes, they would just take a walk through Central Park, buy a hot coffee, and sit on a familiar bench. Other times, Julian would take Alara to a small, cozy restaurant on a lesser-known corner, serving the simple, heartfelt food she loved, a complete contrast to the lavish social events they often had to attend. During one such evening, walking beneath the sparkling streetlights of Fifth Avenue, Alara held Julian's hand tightly. "You know, Julian," she said, looking into his loving eyes, "I used to think that when I became part of your world, I would lose a part of myself, that I'd have to become a flawless socialite." Julian stopped, gently adjusting the cashmere shawl on her shoulders. "You never had to change, Alara. You are the most precious diamond in my world, and I would never want you to change your natural clarity and light. You didn't lose yourself. You brought all your sincerity, strength, and unconditional love to make my world beautiful and complete." He smiled, his eyes full of adoration. "We are no longer two separate worlds, Alara. We are one world, a world that belongs only to our family, legacy, and future." Time flew by, and Miguel grew up healthy, inheriting his father's sharp intelligence and his mother's bright, genuine smile. He was enveloped in the love of two grandmothers, the sophisticated elegance of Grandma Vivian on one side, and the warm, simple affection of Grandma Clara on the other. Together, they built a family where wealth and status were not the measures of value, but rather love, honesty, and respect. 10 years later, Julian Blackwood, the legendary CEO of Blackwood & Associates, walked into his office in the Sterling Tower and found a childish crayon drawing on his desk by his son Miguel, a portrait of their family. Dad in a neat suit, Mom in a business dress, holding papers, and Miguel holding a soccer ball beneath their home. When Alara walked in, he hugged her from behind, gazing at the drawing together. "I never forget those first days, Alara," Julian said, his voice deep and warm. "The day I saw you cleaning the office and thought you were just a struggling student. And today, you are the queen of this empire and the keeper of my heart." Alara turned, placing her soft hand on her husband's cheek. And I never forget the day you, the proud heir of Manhattan, fell in love with me, a girl who had nothing but dreams. Thank you, Julian, for teaching me that true love is not measured by bank accounts, but by trust and building together. They kissed, a kiss of two powerful, mature people, yet still filled with the passion and sincerity of their first encounter. The love story of Alara and Julian is not just a fairy tale of a poor girl meeting her prince. It is a testament that love not only transcends social divides, but also provides the unshakable foundation for conquering the world together. Do you feel this is a good place to conclude the beautiful story of Alara and Julian? Or would you like to add one final, brief scene?